Hey everyone, it's Jamie from Independent Street Tarot and Seasons of Ritual. And we're here to talk about the Dark Moon that's happening in Pisces tomorrow for us on March 19th, or excuse me, March 18th is the 17th today, but for some it will be on March 19th. Dark moons are when the sun and the moon are conjunct, they're together. That's when our masculine and feminine come together. To me, that's a time of rest. It's a time of meditation. It's the time when we go into the void. Um, it is that time that we are basically our sacred self, right? Our masculine and feminine come together, so we're with the beloved. And when the moon and sun come together, there's no illumination on the moon. So I believe the new moon is when you start to see the illumination. That's when we start to get go into action, right? I think it's really important for us to understand the void and the magic, we could say, or the cosmic void where we say we like plant those seeds. At the same time, it doesn't have to be strictly in the conscious, right? And this would be a good time because it is the end of Pisces season. And it is the end of Pisces season, and it is the dark moon of Pisces. So on the 20th, we will go into Ostara. That is the beginning of March, is the beginning of spring. So this dark moon is really closing out a lot. It's closing out Pisces season, it's closing out winter, but it's also closing out a lot of the age of Pisces. If you can see over my shoulder here, when I do this, my hand disappears, so that's not helpful. But if you can see over my shoulder here, if you can see where the sun and the moon are, the moon looks like a little sliver moon, and the sun looks like an orange circle with a dot in the middle. And you can see they're both at 28 degrees in 27 minutes. And so when they're together, they're conjunct. And in astrology, there's about 10 degrees orb of conjunctionness, but this is when they're conjunct absolute. So you can see on my chart, they're in the sixth house. And in some other charts, you guys, when I was looking at it, they weren't in the sixth house, but we're going to go by what my chart says since this is what I'm reading. And the sixth house is ruled by Virgo. And so I do think that this dark moon, and Pisces is the idea of letting go. It is, you know, um, the idea of rebirth to me, right? So when one thing ends, something else begins. And what we're doing is closing out a lot of this age of Pisces energy and moving into this new age of Aquarius. And this is going to be a process. But we're moving out of the Pisces Virgo axis. We're moving out of the earth water axis and moving into fire and air axis. And so I do think it's really interesting that on my chart, as we're closing out Pisces season, moving into spring and closing out the age of Pisces, um, the dark moon is in the sixth house, which represents Virgo, and that represents service, right? That Virgo, right, wants to resolve. So it represents service, how we show up, like daily routines. Um, and I do think this is closing out how we've been doing that for years. So I know a lot of you guys are saying you've been really tired lately. That makes sense. Not only just because we changed time zones, and we changed not time zones, but we changed for daylight savings time. It is still working with eclipse energy, and then moving into spring. Also, Jupiter turned direct. That's a lot of energy. Um, Mercury's still retrograde. It's going to station on the 20th. That's a lot of energy. When Mercury stations and turns direct, all planets will be direct until the beginning of May. That's going to be a lot of energy. So if you're tired right now, respect that tiredness, right? Respect this idea that you could be shedding, leaving behind the way that you showed up. the way that you were of service to people, the way that you thought you had to be of service to yourself. This is to me what this dark moon is representing. It is this time to this rebirth, right? Going into Aries season, um, but also leaving behind a lot, leaving behind, we came out of the Kali Yuga, and that's over, that's like 6,000 years of, I would say, patriarchal norms. And you guys can look this up. And we are chopping that away as quickly as possible. And it's like all systems go. And with that happening, we're seeing a lot of the underbelly, right? We're seeing a lot of lower Pisces, which is that illusion and delusion. And it is up to us to understand that and ask, okay, how are we going to show up moving forward? Where did I think I was in service to things? And it's really interesting because the more that the more that I notice, because again, Pisces is about consciousness, right? So this entire Pisces season, we've been talking about, okay, consciousness, what are the things that are going on inside your head, right? And this could be anytime, but especially during Pisces season because it wants to make that unconscious conscious, right? It's ruled by Neptune. It goes to the depths of the oceans to bring it up. And I was listening to the news and I had this thought like, God, I really need to. It was like the thought of like, I don't deserve to have all these nice things because I was hearing about how terrible other things were going on, right? And um, and then I thought, no, Jamie, you deserve to have nice things. You deserve to enjoy your time on Earth. You deserve to enjoy the sunshine. And of course, my nice things might not seem so nice to others, right? Um, and vice versa. So, it's the individual, right? But I was surprised I thought that. And I was even more surprised I thought that after I was just like listening to some news reports. And so it's really important, you guys, to understand that it's okay for you to have nice things, right? It's okay for you to feel safe. It's okay for you to understand what's going on in you in order to make things better, right? And so with this sun and moon conjunct each other at 28 degrees of Pisces, and that 28-degree mark, I do believe, is points of mastery, right? Um, in the sixth house is about letting go the ways that you thought that were dictated that you had to show up. If someone else in this world was making things really awful for someone else, and then you felt about it, and then you took on the energy of, well, now let me suffer, or let me limit, or let me not show up because those other people aren't able to either, right? This is the idea of putting that to rest because it is the idea of showing up the best we can, not only in order to be of daily service to oneself, but then also to the other. And that was like a big aha moment, and it was even like my mom was reading the news this morning and, again, the nervous system through the roof. And I was like, we really need to be aware of how um, getting in these energies can be limiting us, and we might not even be consciously aware of it. And so I want you guys to be consciously aware of how you feel when you hear, the news or other things that are upsetting you. Um, because being able to, first and foremost, bring that into your conscious, right? And then bringing it to the light and dealing with it, that's going to change how you move forward. That's going to get you out of the illusion, right? Those lower vibes of Pisces that we might not even be aware of because we're unconscious in that thing, but or unconscious in that area. But the illusion and the delusion that keeps us stuck, like think, oh, things will never change. Some crazy power hungry person, all this stuff. And all of this is here and all of this is being shown on a world stage. So it's super important, right? Because Virgo is the body. Um, to see how that feels in the body. But to see where that is quietly, I hate to use the word sabotage, but quietly self-sabotaging us, right? It's quietly keeping us in the illusion. There are things that we know that, now we understand narcissism, now we understand gaslighting, now we understand a lot of things that we didn't before, so that kept us in an energy, right? That was, why does this keep happening to me? Or a victim energy, even, lower Pisces is victim energy. Um, and so it's really important to see if there's any of that other sneaky energy where you feel or say things like I said, like, man, I don't deserve, you know, to be able to A, B, and C, And I was like, oh my gosh. So you guys be aware of that. You do deserve to be able to go to the grocery store. You do deserve to be able to go for a walk. You do deserve to be able to, send money to people that you want to send money to. You do deserve to set boundaries. You do deserve to say no. Okay, you do deserve to, silence your phone. No matter what else is going on in the world, not being aware of that will keep us in the illusion that where we think nothing is changing, and Pisces wants us to turn over. Pisces wants us to understand, you know, Pisces wants us to understand energy, right? That Christ consciousness or just even spiritual energy, that there is something higher, right? We can go to the void, and sit in meditation or sit in silence, and see what comes in. Pisces does want us to surrender. Instead of thinking, oh, I got to be in control of everything, right? That North Node is still in Pisces. It's got 8 more degrees, right? Until it will move into Aquarius. And I think that either happens in June or July. I could be wrong, so don't put a pin in it. But, the nodes will be moving. And that South Node that is in Virgo wants us to get out of the idea of the martyr. Oh, I can't have nice things because of A, B, and C, right? That is what we got to shed. That's what we got to get rid of, right? That is what we have to understand. Everyone can have nice things, no matter what. Where we can be connected is in that higher spirituality, of love from the heart. Right now, a lot of times we do think it's connected from material things, right? For better or for worse. Or we put our self-worth in material things, right? If I just keep working, if I resolve this for everybody, um, then they'll have a better life, Meanwhile, while I'm still on the cross, right, Virgo? I always tell my Virgos, get off the cross, okay? You can resolve things for you. It's okay. You can, again, let's have nice things. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the sun and the moon are also conjunct. Let me see. Okay, the sun and the moon, you guys see the sun and the moon. Okay, they're also conjunct Saturn and Neptune, which Neptune is right above the sun and Saturn is right above Neptune. Okay, Saturn is at 3 degrees of Aries and Neptune as 1 degrees of Aries. Okay, so that means that they're in a deep conversation with each other, right? And it's a really beautiful place to be at the end of Pisces season, moving into Aries season, moving into spring. Um, because as the sun and the moon are going through this like deep meditation together, our masculine and feminine are talking about this together. Neptune is supporting them, saying, okay, whatever it is you guys are figuring out and surrendering, it's going to come into Aries, right? And Saturn is right there giving that stability. Saturn and Neptune together for this long really has been signaling to me that end of the Pisces, the age of Pisces, and the fact that they move into Aries together, right? To me is so strong. So Neptune wants to bring in that spirituality. Neptune wants to bring in that those dreams, right? Neptune wants to understand, okay, when you make the conscious, the unconscious conscious, how can we bring this in? And how does that show up in your body now? How do you show up with these new ideas, but how it feels within you? If you are right now understanding there's parts of you that are sacrificing the old way of what you thought service was or what service looked like, either to yourself or others, or what your daily routine looked like, to yourself or others, and you might not. And I remember I was talking to my sister today, and I was telling her, I was like, and I had been helping my friend out for like over a year, and in order to do so, I was the one showing up just about every week, to check in and help out, and then they have resolved what needed to be resolved. And so now we don't talk as much. We're gonna, meet up pretty soon. And I was like telling my sister, I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. Because we were, talking all the time. And now that she's got it resolved. Now we don't talk all the time. Like I was going there and I was like, I just don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. And I'm not sure how I still will, but it's okay, right? It's okay not to just to surrender that scenario. And, it's okay. I mean, I'm fine. She's fine. We're all fine. So the way I'm going to show up and be a service to herself, up to her and to myself. And if something like this comes up again, I'll probably do it differently of how I could be service to someone else. And all of that's okay. There's really no resolve of like, oh, this is how I feel. She did this, I did that, all that kind of stuff. Nope, it's really not there. Um, so understand coming into this resolve, right? Coming into this way of ending maybe the way you're doing service to others. The feelings might not be 100% there. And that's okay. You just kind of know that part's over, you know? Okay, how do we move on? How do we show up moving forward? All right, the sun and the moon. This is tricky because I gotta move. Okay, let's see if I could do it this way. Yeah. All right, the sun and the moon are also sextiling Uranus. Where are you, Uranus? You are still, okay, Uranus is at 28 degrees of Taurus. Uranus is getting ready to move into Gemini. Uranus is direct. Um, the sun and moon sextiling Uranus. Again, Uranus is shock and awe, right? Uranus is the aha. Uranus is the rebellion. So again, this idea of putting to rest the way that you showed up for people, putting to the rest, totally changing your daily routine, right? Remember, um, Taurus is ruled by Venus. Venus is how we our self-worth, right? How we deem ourselves worthy. All of that has changed. All of that is changing. It's changing now, especially as we come out of the end of the age of Pisces and moving into Aquarius. Um, Uranus has Taurus is creativity, Taurus is stability, right? And so and it's Earth. Again, the sun and moon on my chart are in the sixth house, ruled by Virgo. Virgo is Earth. So this is going to change the way that you show up so you do have more stability, right? And again, the dark moon is when we're quiet, when we meditate, when we're listening, right? Because we are whole. And I mean that just was like the sun and moon. Like we're always whole, but the idea of the two planets together, right? This is listening. So it's not necessarily acting, right? So these are just themes that I see coming in. And so how we will move forward into how we will move forward into spring, but also how we're closing out winter. What's also really interesting is that the sun and moon are sextiling Juno. Juno is at 27 degrees of Capricorn. She's the one that looks like a little flower down at the bottom. See, my pin is disappearing. But down at the bottom, if you guys can kind of see my pin, she's at 27 degrees of Capricorn. Capricorn is Earth. Capricorn is cardinal Earth, right? How we initiate. Juno represents time and space, And remember, Juno sat with Jupiter and Minerva, right, in the triad of Rome, right? She was revered. She also represents equality, okay? And so to me again, and in like with the sun and moon in the sixth house, sextiling Juno in Capricorn, sextiling Uranus in Taurus, it's like one last push or one last not hurrah. It's not like these earth signs aren't ever going to be heard again, but understanding this new way, right, of showing up, being of service, daily routines, how we see ourselves, initiating this because because that South Node is in Virgo, and that idea of resolving everything for everyone is over with, right? The idea of overthinking constantly, right? It's getting us to move more into being present, being in surrender, going with the flow, if you will. Let's go with the flow. But trusting that surrender that when you show up, the universe is actually putting things in place to make your life easier. Case in point, I came to Tuscaloosa. I was supposed to come last week. I couldn't come, so I came this week. It's St. Patrick's Day today, and I kept telling everybody, with the luck of the Irish, who knew, right? They were smiling on me today because it's spring break. I had no idea it's spring break, so no one's in town, so it's really easy to get around. I forgot my driver's license in Louisiana. Don't tell anybody. Because I had it out for the St. Patrick's Day party on Saturday. So I was driving down here, and then I realized, oh my God, I forgot my license. I didn't bring my license. But then I got an email saying, your license had expired. So I didn't need it. So then I went and got a new one. And so all these things, um, which could have seemed annoying or could have seemed like, ugh, right? Actually stacked up perfectly for me to get a bunch of stuff done. And that's what I mean about this idea of zooming out and seeing the big picture or going with the flow or trusting the universe. When these things come up, and if you're just like, oh my God, this is so annoying, okay, fine. But then also ask, okay, not what good could come out of this, but what is actually going on here? How is this supporting me? And listen, I know it's really fucking annoying when you think your life is sucking balls and then there's someone online being like, no, ask what's going on and how I can support you. I totally get it. Okay, I totally get it. Okay. So if you're rolling your eyeballs right now, roll away. At the same time, I would say try it out. Just see. Just see if it works, right? Just see if taking a beat and saying, okay, what is actually going on? Can I trust this? If I just maybe release a little bit of control, what is the best outcome of this? How can this help me move forward? Okay, I'm gonna leave it at there. I feel like I feel like this is a great way to end eclipse season and winter in the age of Pisces. Um, and it's really important for us to understand the places in our minds where we are maybe keeping ourselves stuck. And it could be if your daily routine is, because again, I'm referencing the sixth house, right? Daily routines, Virgo. But if your daily routine is always to listen to the news first, okay, or if your daily routine is, or it doesn't even have to be a daily routine. Like when I was listening to this podcast and I was thinking that about myself, I was in the car and driving, so I knew I was gonna like had to listen to all this stuff. Maybe listen to more uplifting things, but really pay attention, you guys. This is the time to shed that old industry, shed that old energy. Understand you do deserve all the best things in the world, however you want to put it. You don't have to explain to anybody why. You're allowed to let go of old habits and old routines that no longer serve you. You're allowed to ask, okay, show me, universe, where I am staying stuck in some old illusion and delusion, because a lot of times we think, oh, it's this. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, it's not, right? And that's important to ask that. And you could even ask, where am I stuck in this illusion and delusion that's not allowing me more stability or allowing me to make more money because the sun and the moon are sextiling Uranus, who's in Taurus. And Uranus is going to bring in the aha moment. And Taurus represents money because it's ruled by Venus, and it also represents creativity, stability, right? So get that aha, right? And then when it comes in, you can use Juno, right? Who was smart, who was equality, who understands time, who's in Capricorn, and initiate this new plan. Okay, initiate how this is going to show up in you moving forward, right? And the idea, though, is just understanding, having this understanding and listening. Get into that space. And when I say get into a space of meditation, it's just getting in that space where you feel peace in your heart, right? Whether you do it, sometimes maybe people go on walks, maybe sometimes people go on runs, maybe sometimes you just lay down in the middle of the day and breathe deeply and maybe you fall asleep, maybe you don't, I don't know. But it's just, maybe it's driving, but it's just that time where you feel calm and at peace. That's when you're in the alignment. Just see if anything comes in, see if you can hear anything. And then just, always say it's good, it's always good to listen. Okay, friends, I'm going to try to come back on when it is March. So we go to sleep. Some of us will go to sleep on the dark moon and wake up in March. Some of us will well, you know what? We'll still go to sleep on a dark moon and wake up in March because the new moon, right, when she starts to get illuminated, won't happen until we are in springtime. So until then, everyone, stay warm. We've got a cold snap right now in the south, aka the worst for us here in the south. But when I see you guys again, it will be spring.